Welcome to the Border War Stories channel. My name is FPS Senekal. Over the last 16 years, I filmed a lot of interviews with veterans of the Border War. One of the first ones I did way back in December 2009 was Colonel Jan Malan. He was in the mechanized infantry. I knew him from one side, and then he was with 6-1 Mech, and I ended up teaching after 94 at Staff College with the integration. I asked him about SADF.
The South African Defence Force had a brilliant system in the 70s and 80s. Remember, we were at war, and national service meant that everybody had to go. So long before you went to the army, you were at school, and we had a school cadet system where you would be brought into the system of basic discipline, basic understanding of training methods, of hearing commands and executing commands. And that brought all the young guys to the point where they basically knew what was going to happen in their army career. We would take guys in January and give them 3 months training, and we called it basic training. Basic training entailed that all the recruits were handled exactly the same, and we went from the premises that the guys have not been to the Defence Force. We realized that they did come from different backgrounds. So we taught them everything: how to make a bed, how to brush your teeth, how to shave properly, how to iron your shirt, how to become part of a team, how to listen to commands, how to execute commands. And after 3 months training, we would send the guy back only to one place, and that was back to his mother, to show that he can now also make his bed properly. But it was a very good thing, because it taught all the basic elements of fieldcraft, riflemanship, and all that. And everybody had to do it. It doesn't matter in what corps of service you went into. And then we would go for another 3 months of subject training, where we would specialize, some guys as instructors, some guys as drivers, some guys as gunners, some as riflemen, whatever your mustering would be. And then we would go to a phase of section leading, where you form a section, that's 10 troops, with a driver and a commander, a section leader, and in one vehicle, how to work together as a team. And then we would follow that with platoon phase, and then company phase, and then a battalion phase. And then we would go to the Army Battle School and integrate with the other arms of service. So the infantry and the armor and the engineers and the gunners would all jointly train. So the training was extremely thorough. And that meant that if you became part of this team, if you became motivated as part of this team, after a year's training, we could take on any enemy, because the guys were young, they were full of life, they were fit as can be. The leader group integrated with these guys. There was a lot of trust. The guys that could not take it would be taken to other musterings, like working in the stores, working in the kitchens, which was very important. So what we tried to do was to put a guy where he would fit into this team. And that's what made the South African Defence Force so strong, because in that second year, I mean, that really, in operational circumstances, melted this team into what we had. And we had a brilliant force. What makes an individual a good soldier? Motivation. Motivation. If a guy is motivated and he becomes part of a team, that makes him win. You can see it in any other kind of activity where a guy is in a sports team or whatever team, he becomes part of that team. And because you play in that team and you become a known member in that team, that is why you become a good soldier. And I found that guys were not fighting for king and country type of thing. They were fighting for their platoon, for their company, for their battalion. You definitely build a very, very strong bond with your troop, because it's a bond of trust. And troops will trust you when they see you are with them. And in the Defence Force, we had the motto that you lead by example. That was the only way. So the troops would actually physically see you as a commander on the battlefield, actually leading from the front. And I was in battles where my rattle was shot. After the battle, I could put my fingers this deep into the front end of that rattle as it was shot from the front. But if you are there and in front and the troops see you leading, they follow. And the same thing is vice versa, because you trust your troops as well, because you know exactly if you give this command, this will be the reaction. And we would be able to fight to the front, to the back, to the flanks, and outmaneuver any enemy, because the battle drills, the commands, the execution, and the trust was there. I lost troops in battle. It is a very difficult thing to do because of that trust relationship, because you know everyone by name. It is a team, and it is a difficult thing to handle. But because you are professional and during training you train that you even yourself may become a battle casualty, and your second in command will immediately take over. Because you practice this, it sometimes makes it easier to handle in battle, but it doesn't take the pain away. And some of the most difficult things that I had to handle after the war was to go to the parents of those troops, to take the beret and the personal belongings, and to tell the mothers and the fathers exactly what has happened. And yes, it was some of the most difficult things I had to do in my military career. If the perception is that people feel they were lied to, maybe they were not well informed. We never lied about casualties. We never lied about what happened on the front. The fact is that when you do battle, it is like you baking a cake. You've got to break eggs. It's either the enemy that's going to die or your own troops that's going to die. And our motto was rather let the enemy troops die for their country than our troops die for our country. So if there's a perception that anybody lied or people felt that they were lied to, I'm sorry about that. We were fighting communism. We were fighting for the South African dream of creating a country where all the different groups had a place to stand. And I realize that people didn't like the whole idea of separate development and all that. And we're not here to do politics. The wonderful thing about being a military officer is that you are not into politics. You are an official of the state, and a professional one by that. And the state gives you tools. It gives you the troops, it gives you the equipment, it gives you the ammunition, and you do a professional job to the best of your ability. And you will see that we lost very few guys because we were trained that if it was impossible to take a target because of circumstances, then you would draw back, because you would not go and let your troops just die because of an idea or a philosophy. You would be with intelligence there, and you would, if it was impossible to take an objective, draw back, take it from another side, take it through another way of doing it. And that is why we lost very, very few troops. And I believe it was intelligent leadership, and it was well-trained troops. And the facts is, and it now comes out, as you hear all the stories, that people are prepared to tell you what really happened on the front. And I must tell you that we lost nowhere. Where battles, specific individual fights, was so-called lost, it was not a case of lost. It's a case of intelligent decision. When do you draw back? When do you bring in more firepower? When do you maneuver from another side? Than just running in and creating havoc and losing all your troops. That never happened.
Thank you for watching. In the next part of Jan Malan's interview, he will tell us about his experience at Cuito Carnival. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. Much appreciated. And please leave a comment, or if you want to get hold of us, send us an email, borderwarstories@gmail.com.